Welcome back. Now, if I show you these games, which one do you think is the odd one out? Is it Arkham Origins, the most well-known black sheep of the Arkham family? Perhaps it's Arkham Shadow, a VR game isn't exactly accessible to many people. Or hell, maybe you think it's Arkham Knight, it's the only one with a driver but it's Arkham Asylum. You clicked on this video knowing that, it's in the title and thumbnail. Now, I love Arkham Asylum. I've said recently it's become my favourite outright in the series. Knight held the #1 spot down for a long time, but as I get older and realise what I like in Batman media, Arkham Asylum takes the spot. But why? Well, today I wanted to try my hand at something a little bit different and take a short but fulfilling trip back into madness as we enter the asylum for the billionth time and explore why Rocksteady's 2009 masterpiece, despite being the catalyst for the golden age of superhero gaming, sticks out in the Arkham series like a flashback in a Batman movie. Before we do that though, get yourself a channel membership, or don't feel obliged to, but it would help a lot. I wanted to say this video isn't to hate on Asylum. As I said in the intro, it's my favourite of the series, and a huge chunk of that love stems from nearly all of the reasons I'll mention going forward. It also doesn't mean I'm bashing the other games, I'm simply pointing out the differences, so keep that in mind. Batman Arkham Asylum's differences from its successors can really be summed up in one word, that being brutality. It might sound a little heavy-handed at first, but it's the most fitting word for a game that is unrelenting from the moment it begins. The second you load it up, you are not greeted with a sleek, refined menu. Instead, the menus radiate the same harsh energy as the asylum itself. The main screen is dirty, grungy, and quite unsettling. It lets you immediately know that the world you're about to enter is as dark as it is claustrophobic. These menus don't feel like they belong to Batman, they feel like they belong to the asylum, and that is exactly what makes them so unique. If you compare these menus to Arkham City, Asylum's direct sequel, you can see the difference straight away. City's menus are sleek and refined, almost sterile in how cleanly they're presented. They serve the illusion that you're navigating Wayne Tech technology, and that you're stepping into the role of Batman in every single detail. Even when you pause the game or shift through different tabs, the menus are designed to keep you immersed in the identity of Batman. They're smooth and almost reassuring in their design. Arkham Asylum, though, does the exact opposite. At first, its menus almost trick you into thinking you found a safe space, a little break from the horrors that you're about to see. But the longer you spend in the game, the more you realise the menus aren't really a safe place at all. They're another layer of Arkham closing in around you. The messy writing, the dim screen when paused, the unkempt way everything is arranged, it all adds to this sense that there is no real escape. Most games use menus as a breath of fresh air, a reminder that you can stop and plan and kind of regain some control as you go through the adventure ahead. Asylum, though, strips that away. The menus feel very oppressive and very cold, and above all, they make you feel isolated. Continuing on though, we can even move into something like the character bios, which are no more inviting than the menus themselves. Everything about them feels just as jagged and untidy. The standout within the character bios for me is the iconic artwork by Carlos Deanda, who also worked on the game's prequel comic Road to Arkham. His style is a perfect extension of the Asylum's identity. Nothing in his drawings is clean or perfectly straight. Every line feels a little off kilter, a little broken, and that to me is what makes it work so well. I've always loved Carlos's Arkham Asylum art so much to the point that I actually got a tattoo of it on my bicep. To me, it just captures the game in a way nothing else does. From the heroic, sharply drawn stance of Batman, to the almost Hamlet-like pose of Joker, right through to the monstrous takes on the big boys like Croc and Bane. Every character feels both similar and unsettling, which for me is exactly how Arkham should feel. The later games brought back character bios, but never with the same level of stylization, most of them using the in-game models. They were cleaner and more polished, but they lacked that edge. The Asylum bios, even if they have since been rendered non-canon, remain some of the best little details in the game. They give you a sharp and memorable overview of the characters, and the artwork elevates the experience into something more than just things you come across and never look at again. Further amplified though by the patient interview tapes, which are some of the cooler ways to explain the lore of the lesser seen characters in the series. Standouts to me are Scarecrow's slow burn manipulation of a psychiatrist, Croc's almost weirdly funny entries about eating people, and the most disturbing of the lot is Victor Zsasz. So if you haven't listened to them somehow, do yourself a favour and go and do that. That, for me, is the brilliance of Arkham Asylum's UI design. Even when you are technically outside of gameplay, the atmosphere never lets up. The game doesn't want you to feel like Batman with a high-tech gadget menu in front of you. It wants you to feel like an intruder in a hostile place. A place that really, really doesn't want you there. It's an often overlooked side of the game's design, but one I think is as important as anything. Continuing on from this though, the sound design is every bit as oppressive as the menus themselves. Even something as simple as unlocking an upgrade brings with it that faint screech of bats, layered with a jagged, almost techie distortion. It's not a triumphant sound that, yay, you've got an upgrade. It's a reminder of where you are and what you're dealing with. The menus lean into this hostility with audio that is really harsh and quite unsettling at times. It's a far cry from the clean and polished feel of Arkham Knight's menus, or even to a certain extent City and Origins menus. You turn the volume up and Arkham Asylum's menus can become genuinely quite creepy. Every audio choice feels like it's specifically designed to make you uneasy, as if the game is actively pushing back against you doing anything. Even something as small as selecting a Spirit of Arkham message comes with a noise that's quite brittle, almost like glass breaking. The sound design mirrors the visual design perfectly. It's hostile and abrasive, and it doesn't want you to get out of the asylum that easily. And for me, it's kind of beautiful in a weird way. It is another layer of the asylum's identity bleeding into the experience, reminding you again that Arkham is not a place that wants you there, or if you are there, wants to let you rest. We will come back to elements of the sound design later, but for now, let's move from the intangible to the physical. Most people point to Arkham Asylum's atmosphere as its defining feature, and I think for the most part they'd be right. But rather than only looking at the grand, gothic, almost Lovecraftian design of its exterior, it's worth digging deeper into the veins of the beast itself. Take the corridor that links the sewer junction to Killer Croc's lair. On paper, it's a connecting space, but in practice it tells us everything about the asylum's design philosophy. The pipes aren't straight, wires snake across the floor, and the pipes also leak. It shows us that this place really isn't cared about. The lighting is warm but suffocating, giving the whole stretch a sense of hostility. After fighting Scarecrow and Bane almost back to back, we're already on edge, and we know Killer Croc's down here, and we know where we are. But this is the first space where Batman is truly alone, and the silence makes it murderous. To me, the jagged pipes running along the ceiling kind of resemble the ribs of an animal, a cage protecting the arteries. It's unsettling not because it's overtly horrific, but because it looks familiar, then twists that familiarity into something slightly wrong, much like the spikes sticking out of the walls in the medical facility, or the giant cathedral-like windows in intensive treatment. It all makes Arkham Asylum feel more like a house of horrors than a place of healing, and the inmates don't feel like they're there for rehabilitation. It feels more like a punishment to be sent here than a chance to go through some healing. This room at Dead Man's Point amplifies that feeling. The room greets you with skulls that are far too large, so much they immediately dip into the uncanny valley. They may look like human remains, yet they're not perfect in proportion. They don't really include context, they simply exist to disturb you. I've mentioned this room a ton in other videos I've done on Arkham Asylum, but even the cobwebs that fill the room go beyond anything we'd encounter in our day-to-day lives. The implication of what lurks in those webs is left to your imagination, and that absence of detail is what makes the asylum so powerful. It presents you with something recognisable, and then corrupts it. And that is Asylum's best trick, its old fake Joker gag in terms of trickery. The island is built to look like a hospital, a place of order and recovery, but it strips away every ounce of comfort. You recognise operating theatres, patient rooms, staff areas, but none of them feel like places you would willingly want to go. The botanical gardens, which should represent life and renewal, are the finest example of this for me, and instead they feel overgrown and claustrophobic. Even the intensive treatment lobby with its attempt at grandeur feels less like a monument to healing and more like a cathedral of suffering. What makes this so striking is how it differs from the other games that came after. Arkham City shifted away from the uncanny. It presents its architecture, while still feeling gothic and moody at points, as closer to a comic book panel than a suffocating institution. Arkham Origins leaned on atmosphere in places, but it leaned more into what I can only describe as noir stylization than the unsettling innate wrongness of Asylum. And by the time Night dropped in 2015, Rocksteady had created a sprawling playground of a city, beautiful but never oppressive outside of a few select places, and that is why Asylum for me remains unique. It doesn't just put you and Batman inside an institution created by Amadeus Arkham to heal Gotham's lost souls, it makes the institution itself feel like it's out to get you and its patients. The menus are hostile, the sound design is sharp and grating, and the architecture is built to resemble comfort, only to snatch it away from you. Every part of the design constantly reminding you that Arkham Asylum is a hell on earth. The gameplay is where we move away from the architecture and atmosphere, but it still carries its own kind of weight, a weight that would later be traded in for speed and flash. Arkham Asylum's combat was nothing short of revolutionary. We take it for granted now, but at the time, it changed everything. There was no need to lock onto an enemy, no overcomplicated mix of combos. At its heart, it was 4 buttons: attack, counter, stun, and dodge. That's it. Yet, with those 4 inputs, Rocksteady created one of the most satisfying and entertaining combat systems in gaming. The sequels would redefine it, polish it, and basically expand it in just about every way, but the raw weight of Batman's strikes never really came back for me, and I think that was down to the sound design more than anything. Arkham Asylum wants you to see a punch connect and then hear it crack. The swoosh that cuts through the air with the stun, the meaty crack when a fist lands, even the slow motion moments that punctuate certain fights. It can get quite comical at times, but it's brutal, and that balance gives the combat a character that sets it apart from every other game in the series. Something else that rarely gets mentioned is that Asylum is the only entry where Batman can hit 2 enemies at the same time. It might sound small, but it changes the entire flow of combat. In the later games, you can almost map out your plan of attack, a bit like that scene in Iron Man 3 where Tony plans exactly how to save those people falling from Air Force One. That's how Arkham City, Night, and Origins feel. In Asylum, you can try to plan like that, but it only takes 1 moment of hitting 2 thugs at once to throw everything off, and in its own way, that mechanic kind of ties back into the Asylum itself. Even the combat, the thing that's supposed to make you feel like Batman, refuses to give you that total control. The system is fighting against you, and much like the hostile corridors and uncanny architecture, the combat reflects the same uncomfortable truth, that being that Arkham does not want you here. Finally, I wouldn't be making a video on why Asylum feels so different from the rest of the series if I didn't talk about the lore it pulls from. Before you even step through those gates, one thing is made clear to comic fans. Arkham Asylum is a serious house on a serious earth. You see what I did there? And it does not play around. The source material that directly inspired the game, Arkham Asylum, a serious house on serious earth, it is not only my favourite Batman comic ever, but also a story that deserves an entire video of its own down the line. If you've read it or even watched a breakdown of it, you'll know exactly what I mean when I say it gives the Asylum this beastly, all-consuming presence that feels almost eldritch in its horrors. What sets the game apart is that Arkham Asylum is one of the only settings in the series where we remain in the same place for the entire runtime. The only other real comparison is Arkham City, and even then, I guess Gotham counts too, I suppose, but Gotham kind of sprawls into dozens of little districts and 3 islands, and it doesn't quite match that same tone as Arkham Asylum, and that is why the Asylum is different. It's a focused thing. In City, the story grows alongside the player's exploration. The lore we learn from it comes from playing the game. In Asylum, though, players might already enter with a preconception. We know Arkham, we've seen it in the comics, we know what it does to people. That makes every part of it feel full of life, whether it be for better or worse, like we're playing inside a place that has already been alive long before the game started. That comes directly from this comic. A Serious House isn't about Batman saving Gotham, it's about Batman walking into Arkham and realising he doesn't stand above it, he almost belongs to it. The book is filled with themes of rebirth, madness, and the idea that insanity itself can corrupt things. Grant Morrison wrote Arkham as less of an institution, more of a living thing, a labyrinth that saps the sanity from everyone inside, Batman included. The asylum seems to turn Gotham's best hunter into just another bit of prey for the meat grinder. Rocksteady may not adapt the comic literally, but they adapted its spirit perfectly. I'm going to give a quick content warning here. I'm about to mention sexual assault very briefly. Nothing graphic will be said, but I'd be doing my job badly if I didn't warn you. But it would feel dishonest not to acknowledge it, because it's pivotal to the asylum's history. Martin Mad Dog Hawkins is the catalyst for our asylum's atmosphere. He murdered and assaulted Amadeus Arkham's wife and child, and that single act, that ultimate display of depravity, broke Amadeus Arkham forever. He killed Hawkins later and covered it up as an accident, but by then his mind was already gone. That event sent him spiralling until he became an inmate in his own asylum, and we can actually see the results of that descent when we find his cell in Arkham Mansion. His fate is right there for us to look at. The statue of Amadeus' wife in Botanical Gardens decapitated with Mad Dog etched into it is arguably the game's most overt reference to the source material, and arguably its most disturbing, but not because of the imagery, but because of the inferences that can be made from it. Having Hawkins' nickname etched into the plaque means one of two things. The first being he himself etched it there, however that's extremely unlikely given the asylum's age and Hawkins being long since dead by the time we arrive. The second and more likely option, which I actually think is worse, is that this has been carved and the statue beheaded by current inmates, and they've reenacted the events which sent Amadeus mad as almost a shrine to Mad Dog. We know that the asylum must have some upkeep, so there's no way this would have been here since Hawkins' days in the asylum, especially considering the gardens are supposed to be relaxing. So I think my second theory is most likely, and I think that's both really cool and absolutely horrifying. And ultimately, above all else, I think this is what really elevates Arkham Asylum above its sequels. The later games pull from decades of Batman history, but Asylum feels anchored to one specific story and one source, which it really leans into tonally. It borrows Morrison's interpretation of Arkham as a living, breathing villain in its own right, and builds the entire game around that concept. The menus, the sound design, the combat, the soundtrack, the character designs, it's all feeding back into the same idea that Arkham doesn't just house the worst Gotham has to offer, Arkham is the worst Gotham has to offer. And with that, we'll leave the Asylum behind for now. I wanted to delve back into the Asylum because it's my favourite of the series, and I just wanted to give it more praise than it already gets. I know I didn't mention every aspect of the game here, and that was intentional for two reasons. The first being not everything needed to be mentioned, and the second being I want to save some of my other thoughts for my Ultimate Arkham Asylum retrospective, which will come further down the line. Let me know if you liked this shorter, kind of more focused style of video. It's something that between the serial killer runs and the rewrite content I really haven't done in a while, so it's been a little odd getting back into this creatively, but hey, I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know what your favourite or most unique aspect of Asylum is. Grab yourself a channel membership, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.